Hello. I just have a great time with my friend Deanna Elliot. Just want to introduce her. I've known her through pregnancy and friendships, and she's now the assistant principal elementary school, Hartfield Academy, and just has a wonderful testimony. And I asked her if she wouldn't mind sharing it today. And we have a lot in common. We both have 3 boys. I say it's the 3 Boys Club.
That's right.
So we see each other at various sporting events as well. But she's a blessing. Just want to share things that God is doing in people's lives. Talk about them, share them, sing of praises of the Lord. Remember the great things He's done. But tell us about you. You grew up in Pontotoc, Mississippi.
Yes, North Mississippi. I'm a Pontotoc girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what brought you to Jackson area?
Actually, my husband's job.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, years ago, like pre-kids. We were down here. He was an instructor at the Fire Academy in Pearl.
Okay, so Kelly's a fireman.
Yes.
And is he still doing that?
He's fire chief now.
Fire chief, okay.
Yes, he's out at the Air Guard base.
That's great. That's great.
Yes.
And you started having babies. And tell me how old they are now.
All right, Peyton's 18.
Okay.
Connor is 16, and Hayden is 11. So I have a senior, a 10th grader driving as well, and a middle schooler.
And that's busy.
It's very busy, yes.
And a full-time assistant principal job.
Yes.
And you grew up in the church,
Yes.
strong foundation
Yes.
in the Lord. You're one of those, there Wednesday, where Sunday.
Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, GAs, Act Teens, church camp, you name it.
Everything,
Yes, we're always
everything
there.
growing
Yes.
up. So I got to be a part of pregnancy number 3,
Yes.
and that was not expected.
Not
Pregnancy.
not expected and not planned. It wasn't planned.
Not
no.
planned.
No.
So there was a lot of initial anxiety about not being ready for number 3, and a lot going on in your life.
Right. I had switched jobs. I left teaching public school and moved to private school where Peyton and Connor were. Things were settled, and I guess a good way to put it is this was not my plan. It wasn't my plan to have a 3rd one.
Not my plan.
Not my plan.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then tell a little bit about Hayden and what developed in his pregnancy and what you expected and not expected.
Yeah, so I guess a main difference when I first found out, of course, being upset because I hadn't planned it. I want to emphasize that and then a difference that I noticed right off was I didn't feel like I had that connection with the baby like I did Peyton and Connor. For some reason, something was different. I just didn't feel connected. And there was one particular time I remember coming to see you and to have a sonogram. And I just remember telling God, hey, if this is not your plan, prepare me now in case something's wrong. And, everything looked fine at that visit. Now, I know another visit we came to, there were some things that just looked a little different, and you sent us on to a specialist at that time. And really no red flags for us. They talked about he's small in size, and we're like, well, I'm 5 feet tall. My babies are small. So really no red flags. We just carried on.
Right. Little red flags, but nothing to connect the dots.
Right. Yeah. I remember the doctor saying Hayden looked like he had club feet. Well, Peyton and Connor had club feet when they were born. They talked about the measurements of their arms and legs, and that's when we're like, well, we're small people, so those really didn't. I just didn't put it together. Even with the gut feeling that I had of not having that connection, I still didn't put it together that there was something wrong or could be something wrong.
And then at delivery is when you found out.
Yeah, so I had a section, and I was in the holding room. Kelly was with the big boys and parents, and someone came in and just said, hey, your baby's got Down syndrome, and left.
Wow.
And I was by myself. My mom wasn't there, my friend wasn't there, Kelly wasn't with me. Somebody went and told Kelly separately, so that was very hard, very emotional.
Right. And looking back, just the flood of emotions, I know, and then you were sick from your C-section.
Yes.
Kelly wasn't in there. It was
Yes.
just a lot going on. So how did you respond, and how did you and Kelly get through that?
I just remember crying at that point. Being a public school teacher, I had an image in my head of a classroom down the hall. And I remember when my friend came in, I just kept saying, he's going to be one of those babies. He's going to be one of those babies. And it just destroyed me. I just didn't understand why that happened and how that could happen to us.
Right. And also, like you had mentioned, you don't have a lot of information. So you have this picture of special needs,
right,
and you don't know where you're going to be in that spectrum of things.
No idea. All I could see was the kids from that classroom that were nonverbal, sitting in a chair and just swinging. And, I don't know how to handle that. I don't know what to do with that. I had not been around a lot of people that had disabilities. And so it was just, I had not had any in my classroom. So that was a whole new world for me.
So what happened in the next days to weeks?
Well, I do remember the next day you coming in, and I think I had been trying to nurse and trying to figure all that out. And of course, with babies with small features and all that, that was a nightmare. But I remember you coming in and me telling you, because you were not on call when I had Hayden, and you already knew. And I just remember you sitting down and praying with me. And that's just the one thing that sticks out from those first few days is, I got a lot of text, God give a special kiss to special people. And I remember I didn't want to be special because I didn't want this, but you just sat, you cried with me, and you prayed with me. I mean, that's all you could do.
Talk about the text, and the emotions are like the stages of grief, like anger and hurt and sorrow and mourning, and
it is.
And you're angry at the world, and maybe even jealous that you don't have a healthy, happy baby. And
absolutely, you go through all of those stages. And I'm able to share that with some new moms now, and when they are angry in the beginning, and I'm like, that's okay, you're gonna feel that. I remember when those first couple months, now it kind of runs together, but I remember Kelly would stay home with with Hayden, and I would take Peyton and Connor to church, or I would stay home with Hayden and we would swap out. But I can remember sitting in church in our spot at Pine Lake, and I knew I needed to be there, but I remember being there and just crying through the whole service. And I remember thinking, people around me are thinking, what is wrong with her? But I was just so mad at God that he did that. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why something like that could happen to people like us. I mean, I really thought we were above that. I mean, truly.
Right.
And how could that happen? What were we gonna do?
This can't be me.
It can't be me. It can't be us. And I just remember, those early weeks, and Kelly just telling me, we're gonna do the best. We're gonna love him. He will not be loved by anybody else like we can love him. I mean, he's in the perfect family. And I just remember him being that support for me, because I had a hard time with it.
Yeah. And what did God teach you through that, through Hayden, through all that?
Well, one, he's taught me he's in control and he makes the decisions, not me. Even though it was not my plan, it was his plan. It was God's plan all along. And, Hayden, through all the hospital visits and the doctor visits and the therapies, and, it was, I learned it wasn't all about me. I was so embarrassed in the beginning when we went to Medicaid office to apply for Medicaid. I'm like, people like us do not do this. Yeah. I was so embarrassed, but I was very thankful later on, because there's no way we could have afforded all the hospital stays and all the surgeries. But, I think it was, it centered me in everything that I had grown up knowing, but had kind of just, put to the side and was living our life. God recentered me, recentered our family, and we put him back where he should be first.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Totally. You shared that it was a difference in pay to go to a new school, but God placed you there for a reason.
So my boys were in private school at University Christian, and I was teaching at Rouse Elementary in Brandon, and so I just had this call and this feeling over the year to try to get on at UCS with my boys. And so in May, I left Rouse and went to private school to University Christian School. So that was definitely a decrease in pay. And then after I had signed the contract and was officially starting there, then I found out I was pregnant. So it's like, how in the world am I going to have a third child? I've taken a pay cut, and I remember like emailing my principal at the public school. I was like, I've got to come back. I can't do this. This is not going to work out. And she told me, she said, you made this decision. I know you didn't make it lightly. I know you prayed about it. You're where you're supposed to be. So she kind of gave me that little kick that I needed to put that behind me and move on. But, later I saw God's hand in it all, the way they took care of me and loved on me, supported my classroom, supported us, took care of us when we were, when I had to miss so many days. It was just, God put me there.
Just beautiful, family.
Yes,
placement.
It was very much a family.
Now Hayden is 11 years old, but you went through tremendous health issues, heart surgery, and a Nissen.
He had a Nissen
stomach issues. As a baby, he had a gastric tube for feeding.
Yeah. It was a lot those first couple of years. I'd say probably after he got to about 3, but those first 2 years for sure, the first year and a half, we were in the hospital every month. It would be anywhere from a 3-day stay to a 10-day stay. Just a lot of lung issues. Couldn't figure out if it was his lungs, if it was still his heart, what it is. He was on oxygen for 24 hours a day for a full year. So, anytime we went to a ball game with the boys, a T-ball game at the time, we're carrying our oxygen tank with us, and then you add the feeding tube in. And so it was a lot. It was a lot emotionally. It was a lot.
Right. How did you walk? How did you do that? How did God carry you through that?
God did it. God carried us. I mean, there's no way to say it other than that. We had a strong support system from our parents. My mom she was here majority of the time that first year and a half for sure. Well, there's no way we could have done it without her, and her being available to help us do that. I had a great support staff at school. So a lot of close friends at school that, took care of school business, because when you're a teacher, those kids at school are your kids as well. I mean, you don't just dump them with somebody and leave. So I had a great support system there. I had girlfriends there that would come to the hospital and get me out because I did not want to leave. I did not want to go home. I wanted to stay here the full time. So I had a great support system there as well. Was not searching God like I should have been at that time. I think because there's still a lot of anger and hurt and madness. And so I'm thankful he didn't leave me. He was still there. And there were some times, and I shared with you, that they wanted to put a trach in Hayden, and it just broke me. I couldn't imagine. And so I just remember going out on the grass at Batson and just crying out to God, asking, why are you doing this to us? So even though I wasn't searching him daily and being fed daily by him, it was still in me. I knew I had to go to him. And so there are a lot of moments like that throughout Hayden's journey.
Wow. And talk about Hayden now. How has he changed your life?
Oh, wow. I don't think he's impacted just my life or just my family, but it's everyone he meets. He does not meet a stranger. He doesn't see color. He doesn't see if you have a disability or if you don't. I mean, everything's it's just a happy world for him. I mean,
it's like joy. It's joy all the time.
Oh yeah, yes, he is. He's joy all the time. He feels like everybody's here for him. If he doesn't know you, he's going to hug you, or he's going to fist bump you, or he's got older brothers, so he'll say, "Dab me up," and because his brothers have taught him to dab him up. And so he was at school. He came by my school this last week, and some of my little second graders that haven't seen him, he was going straight up to him. I said, "Y'all, he's just going to hug you. I'm sorry, I can't stop him." He just loves everybody, unconditional. So unconditional love would be another way to describe him.
And what does that taught your boys?
I think it's taught my boys and Kelly and I as well, to have compassion for others, to empathy for others, because we all see what a struggle it is for him to do just the simplest things. Stepping up into my truck It's a simple task for a typical 11-year-old, but that's a hard task for him. The end of the day or the end of the week when he's tired from, he goes to therapy, outside therapy twice a week on top of what he gets at school, and by the weekends he's tired. We had an event at my school last night. He didn't want to go. He just wants to stay at his house. He's tired. He doesn't want to go, and so it takes a lot out of him. And so I think it's taught me to be a little more compassionate, even with my older boys, and not just thinking they can always go. It's a chore.
And they see other people differently too.
I think they do. They're very protective of Hayden. They don't want people making fun of him. I see that in different areas. If we're out, they're quick to grab Hayden's hand to help protect him because he doesn't sense danger. So if we're crossing the street, even going to church, walking across the parking lot, they'll grab his hand because he's not looking. He just knows he's going into church. He's going to sit right. It's a party with him, and so they are very compassionate with him and with others as well.
So, out of Hayden's life and meeting others like him, there's been a ministry growing out of this, and it's going to be the next step for this family. Talk about the lily pad.
Yes, so Kelly and I are with another couple, Brent and Kristen Lake. We own a restaurant. It's not open yet, but we are doing renovations currently and hope to be open by the summertime. So it all started really from Brent and Kristen's little girl Lily and Hayden. They went to the lighthouse together when they were little bitty. And so we started a race called Run Up for Downs, just to bring awareness to the community for Down syndrome. And through that and meeting with other people, we realized there's not a lot of opportunities for our kiddos once they finish high school. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to work? And so just through a lot of stages of that, we decided we were going to open a restaurant.
That's
so
awesome.
we are going, our goal is to employ and train individuals with disabilities, and then hopefully other people in the community and the businesses will hire them.
And it's a nonprofit. It's going to be in Ridgeland. They bought M7 Coffee House.
Yes.
And we'll talk about the name. How did you get Lily Pad?
So the Lily Pad came from, Brent was out running one day, and we had been discussing what we were going to call it. Could we put Hayden and Lily's name together? Could we take their initials, and come up with something? And so Brent was out running one day, and he was running by some water, and he saw some lily pads, and it was just like it clicked, because that's what we had been talking about. We want to be a stepping stone to help put them into the community. How can we do that? And so when he saw the lily pad, and when he presented it, it was like, yeah, that's it. Because we want to be that stepping stone for not only our kids, but other kids like ours with disabilities.
So when do we get to come to the lily pad? When will it open?
You can start now by coming and volunteering. We've got some renovations going on and some volunteer opportunities for people in the community to help us. The Lord has blessed us tremendously with, with donations, and so putting people in our paths to help donate things. And so the more help we get now, the more money we can keep aside to help for our operating expenses. So our goal right now is to be open by summertime. That's what we're looking at.
That's great. And you can donate or volunteer. Go to the Facebook page, the Lily Pad.
Yes.
And it's going to be a wonderful ministry to step kids from high school to hopefully future employment.
That's right.
Wonderful. But through this whole process and Hayden's life, what scripture, I ask you to share what scripture has meant the most to you that has become real in your life.
So, with God's word, there are just so many scriptures, and in the season that you're in, you find, the Lord speaks to you through different verses. But one that was sent to me early on, when Hayden was first born, that stuck out, that I kept going back to, was Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans for hope and a future. And so that's just what we keep going back to. We know God has a plan for Hayden. we don't know what that plan looks like, but we're just trusting and knowing that he's already walked it out and that he will lay it out for us. And we know Hayden will be a valuable person in the future, you know, in the community. I mean,
that's right. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.